I'm Jeff Erickson here with Chris Liss. We're back together after each of us took a respective week off. Going to talk a little bit about second half baseball values and what to do with Tom Brady now that Aaron Hernandez has been incarcerated. Let's start off on the baseball side of things, Chris. We're doing our RotoWire roundtable rankings, and there's a lot of guys I'm struggling with. Starting at the top with Ryan Braun. The news on his thumb injury seems to get worse every time I see an item come up on RotoWire. He hasn't played a game for me since I made that trade, that buy low trade. Great job, Jeff. Hey, everybody loves the deal. You did a great job, great deal, and he hasn't played. It's like when I did a Grady Sizemore trade in Tout Wars. I called you from my daughter's friend's birthday party. I was like stuck, like, hey, I need to just check up on make sure I'm doing the right trade. Hey, go ahead, do the deal. Grady Sizemore for Cliff Lee. Just take Cliff Lee, light him on fire. But nah,
are you trying to blame me for that 3 years later?
Just a little bit. Yeah.
Well, I'll say, was I for the Braun deal? I probably was.
Yeah, you were.
We thought the suspension would get him, but it was actually the thumb. It's just funny how, it's not the thing that you thought would bring you down, but you're brought down nonetheless.
It's the cover-up of the thumb. It's not the injury. It's the cover-up of the injury that we didn't realize as serious as it was. Now, I don't think
settled. MLB and Braun settled, and the deal was you take the 50 games off, and nobody says anything about why. We'll fabricate a thumb injury.
It's the Michael Jordan retirement.
Right.
Now, that's really bad, but anyways.
I don't even know what that is, but go ahead.
No, Michael Jordan retired to play baseball because he was suspended by the NBA. That was always the rumor.
Oh, right.
All of his gambling
for the
stuff.
Gambling, right.
Yeah.
Right.
But no, we'll see about that. But I might not get another game out of him all year. And the other part of the deal is I gave up Patrick Corbin, whatever. I do think that's an obvious second half slumper, or at least compared to what he's done so far, because he's not even getting a ton of strikeouts. So yeah, I think that's fine. I'm okay with that one. But anyways, where do you do with Ryan Braun? I'm doing my rankings for the second half of the season. How low do you drop him?
Well, how long is he projected to be out with the thumb? Another 3 weeks or so? I mean, what's the
We don't know.
return date?
That's just the thing. He's not even ready to grip a bat right now.
Right, but I mean, how long will he be able to grip a bat? I mean, Giancarlo Stanton hurt his hamstring, and he couldn't even, run in the pool for a week, and then he did, and then he made it back. So what's the prognosis?
It'll be similar like that. Until he hits a certain milestone, we won't know what the prognosis is.
Let's say he's out another month, okay? I mean, I think that's probably good over-under, and it's, end of June. So you're talking about beginning of August. So he misses basically a third of the season. And so you get 2/3 of Braun and 1/3 of whoever else. Now, that's assuming Braun's healthy, the thumb's fine, and he doesn't get suspended, when he comes back. I would say, Braun is probably like a 5th or 6th round pick in a shallow mixed league, maybe a little bit lower in a deeper league where it actually matters to miss on a 6th round pick.
Yeah, okay, I think I buy that. And I'm doing my rankings for like 12-team mixed leagues. That's the presumption here. So I'll probably put him about 50 or 60 overall.
Yeah, 5th or 6th round pick, yeah.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Okay, so what about guys coming back from injury? Matt Kemp, what are you going to do with him right now? He's back, missed a game yesterday, but that was just a planned absence. What are you doing with him?
I mean, you start him. I mean, what else?
No, I'm talking ranking-wise. Where do you put him?
I put him around like the 4th round. I mean, just think about if you were drafting today. I don't have a list in front of me, but you're going to get to that point where, you've gotten through the guys you really trust, and then you're going to have guys like Josh Hamilton and Matt Kemp and Braun even, and, I don't even think.
Okay, of those three, who do you want the most?
Probably Kemp. I think I'd go Kemp, Braun, Hamilton in that order. I mean, Kemp is back.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. Is it because of it? Are you more fearful of the injury? Or are you more fearful of like Josh Hamilton swinging at the first pitch every single time he comes up there?
I think with Kemp, I don't think he's hurt. I mean, he had a hamstring injury, but I don't think it's not the shoulder, right? That's not what kept him on the DL.
No, but it was good timing. I think that the shoulder prevented him from hitting for power before he went on the DL.
Maybe. I mean, guys just have slumps, I mean, guys just hit badly for a long time. David Ortiz, like 2-3 years ago, was like he was washed up. He was done. And now he's still one of the best hitters in baseball. It was 2 months of David Ortiz. People thought he was done. We know the Jeter example where he was batting 190 in June 5-6 years ago before he's put up, some really good years since. And I just think, so he had a bad month and a half before he, went back on the DL. He had been a little out of it because of the shoulder and the hamstring last year. Didn't have his timing. And Kemp is a guy who could start striking out a ton and getting in bad habits when he does that. But I mean, I still, think that if he's healthy now, and by all accounts he is, you got to get him at least in the fourth round. When you get into those rounds where you're like, okay, I'm kind of stuck. Am I going to take Jason Kipnis or what the hell? I'll take Matt Kemp.
You realize Jason Kipnis is doing everything we expected of him, and
Right.
then some. 17 stolen bases, 11 homers.
Okay, maybe that's too inflated. Maybe you would take Kipnis, although he had a horrible first month too. So he's like really come on.
Yeah, he's been on fire the last
2 months. Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a bad example. But you know what I'm saying? When you get to that point in the draft where you're taking a guy because you're like, all right, I'll take this scarce position, or I'll take, that's when you say, you know what, I'm just going to take Matt Kemp and just hope he finds it.
Yeah. So that's one category of player that I'm dealing with. The other types are breakouts and slumpers. Those are the other two that it's interesting. Where do you put them? Chris Davis, we've talked about him before, but my goodness, he's still doing it. 27 homers, 70 RBI. What do you do with it? Where do you put him? Is he top 10, top 5 now?
I wouldn't say top 5, but I'd say top 10. I think around number 10.
Okay.
You just got to say it is what it is. I mean, it's not like, last year he had 33 homers. And was he a full-timer from the very beginning of the season last year? I can't remember.
Mostly. I think he was, actually. I mean, there might have been like a day or off against lefties here and there, but for the most part he has been. Well, let's put it this way. Chris Davis or Prince Fielder? Who would you rather have?
I mean, if I'm starting a league from scratch right now for a second-half league, I don't have any sort of volatility concern. Yeah. I'll probably take Chris Davis.
Okay. Yeah, that's where I'm at too.
I just like the park that he's in. I like the lineup. I mean, they're both in great lineups, but I just like the park. I just like the upside. I think he could hit 50 homers this year. He probably will. 48. I mean, there's no reason he can't. And Fielder is more like 33. So I'll go Davis.
I'll throw two more at you. Two helium guys: John Segura and Paul Goldschmidt.
Goldschmidt, I might take ahead of both Davis and Fielder. I might take Goldschmidt like 8 overall or something like that.
I think you might have to go higher than that to get him.
Okay,
so I think I like having him at 5 or 6 right now.
Okay, could be then. Okay, he runs a little bit too. He's in a great ballpark. He's in that, he's a little bit younger, so like it's more of a genuine prospect makes good on his pedigree situation. So yeah, I'd have him ahead of them. And Gene Segura, I'd probably have him a little behind those guys. I'd probably have him like 17th or something like that. I'd have to look at it more closely because I don't. It's not like it's preseason. I've done all my rankings so closely, but I'd probably have him somewhere in the second round just because I don't know how much power he's going to have in the second half. The speed looks for real. And a middle infielder that steals 35, 40 bags, with a 300 average is still very valuable. But he seems more like Jeter in his prime rather than, A-Rod in his prime. So I would probably take him in the second round.
Let me ask you this. Is there a category that you're going to emphasize a little bit? If you're doing Ron Chandler's monthly league, are you looking at batting average a little bit more? Are you looking at stolen bases a little bit more on reflection of what's happened so far this year?
The batting average is tough in a 1-month league because it's just so flighty. But I do think in certain leagues, like for instance, in our staff keeper league, we have 18 teams, and it's basically you guys, you're in first and we're in second, and no one else. Roger Anderson has like 5 dead players. There's just no way he's going to keep it up. He's got a couple guys doing huge things for him, but he's not going to make it. So it's either we catch you or we don't, and I made one, I feel like a great trade to get in a position, but there's a lot of time left and there's a pretty big gap between first and second. But in that case, I'm really trying to get average. I really feel like batting average is going to be a difference because we're going to pass all these dead teams that are punting in the keeper league in homers and RBIs. We're low in home runs now. That's not going to last. We're going to just pass all these people. It's going to be no problem. But the batting average, the whip, and the ERA are the 3 categories where you can't really move just because people are quitting. And so I think from this point forward, you really got to be careful with those categories, especially if you're competing with somebody who has a big lead or has a team that's going to be strong across the board. Those are the 3 you really got to watch out for. So friends and family, for instance, I just traded Wieters and Steve Cishek, who's been good lately, for Yachty or Molina. It was just a batting average play. I think I'm going to end up with plenty of power, and I think average in some ways is the one category, at least hitting-wise, that you need to secure.
Yeah, I think you and I agree on this. I was writing and charging. I think we need to bump up our high batting average guys. I think they're more valuable than people realize. Yachty Molina's hitting 355. I mean, that's crazy good how good he's been. But, Joe Mauer types, all these high average guys, I think that's why someone like a Manny Machado is overlooked. And he might even start to hit for more power. I mean, he's had all these doubles. At what point do these doubles turn into homers?
Well, I don't know. See, I'm going to look at so batting average is more valuable because people quit, and then you can pass them in counting categories, not batting average. I don't think it's more valuable per se. It's just another category like any other. And there is the advantage of tanking batting average, which Larry Schechter did in labor, and he's crushing it, because cumulatively it doesn't hurt you. Once you get 3 terrible batting average guys, the fourth one costs you nothing in average because you've already got the one locked up. And then you're just basically getting a discount on every single guy after that. So in an only league, it's a pretty viable strategy to totally tank batting average. Harder to do in a mixed league. But, Manny Machado, I tried to trade Paul Singman. I tried to trade him. Paul Singman has him in the Young Friends and Family because, again, I'm targeting average in that league. And I offered him, I don't remember what. It was like Sergio Romo and Matt Dominguez. And he turned it down. And he's pretty solid in average. So I'm thinking, Manny Machado's not that valuable of a fantasy player. He's good at batting average, which fluctuates a lot. He doesn't run that much. He doesn't hit for many home runs. And, he scores some runs.
Isn't he scoring a boatload of runs, though?
I wouldn't say a boatload. I'd say he's got 40-something. I mean, 42, 43. I mean, he's going to end up with 90 to 100. It'll be a good run score season, but it's not like, he's not Mike Trout from last year run scoring wise. Okay. So, I just think people are overvaluing him because of the pedigree. Just like people hate all those unsabermetric friendly guys. Sometimes they love the guys that the sabermetric community realizes is this is the best young player. This is the most valuable property in baseball, possibly. The people like those guys extra in fantasy when in a 5x5 fantasy, I'm sorry, doubles are just not a category.
Yeah, Nick Markakis always used to be overvalued in the fantasy, like the Saber community in fantasy. It seemed like it was that way all the time too. What about Josh Donaldson? Now, this is a guy that from the midpoint of last season on is consistently raked. He's been over 300 constantly. Now he's hitting for more power. Had a huge series against my Reds this week. He's someone I feel like I've just grossly undervalued all the way.
Yeah, I picked him up in Friends and Family, and I missed him by $1 in the NFBC. $1. I bid 74, and he went for 75, and that would have really made a difference. Although last place to second to last place, but still, I then because I'm only a point behind. Was hoping for Erickson, and I was this close to passing him. And then the day I do, I'm going to write was hoping for Liss. So I'm going to change my team name to that, and I'm just waiting to pass him. I will eventually because Harper's coming back.
And see, if you would have gotten Donaldson, it would have prevented other bad moves that you made in response to that too.
Probably. I mean, I picked up Eric Chavez, and he got hurt the day after I picked him up. But it was really the pitching. It was Jason Mott's injury. I didn't have Mott, but it was it caused me to pick up Mitchell Boggs, and I had Broxton. I drafted before he lost the job in March, and so that cascade was whatever. We've been over this grind. Right. But anyway, I like Donaldson. I do think he was a decent prospect. He was a catcher, actually, believe it or not, and he did start to hit last year at the end of the year, and I saw a couple signs early this year that he was going to play and start hitting, and that's all you really need. You need a little spark from somebody who was once a prospect or showed something last year, and that's kind of all you need to buy it.
Do you know who the Cubs traded him for, or who the Cubs landed when they traded him to the A's?
I didn't even remember him really as a Cubs prospect, though.
Yeah.
Who did they get?
Rich Harden.
Oh, nice.
It's a good deadline deal that they got Harden for the stretch run and all that. And Harden was actually decent for a little bit until he got hurt. Yeah,
he was good for them 1 year. He had ridiculous strikeout and walk rates, but he struck out so many guys that 1 year. I think he led the majors in K-9.
Yeah, and Donaldson took forever to progress up to the major league level and then be able to hold his own. But now it's looking really good for the A's. Go figure. Let's move over to football. We had a little discussion on the air today.
Hey, before we do that, one quick thing.
Okay, sure.
Yasiel Puig. I know he's been talked about, but if you're talking about any sort of second half rankings, you can't avoid Yasiel Puig.
I know. I'm trying to figure him out still.
I mean, is he a top 10 player?
No, I'm not putting him that high yet.
I mean, it's. I know it sounds crazy because he's only been up 3-4 weeks, but you do realize what he's done, right? I mean, he's hitting .430. He's got 7 home runs. He steals bases. I mean,
yeah, I know what I've gotten because you know what? That was my last reserve pick in NL Labor. Oh. And Nate Rabbit said at the time, he goes, and I think he was kind of just busting my chops a little bit. He goes, "That's a bad reserve pick next year." So
I'd love to. Right, it's too bad we don't have that radio clip. We could bring him on the XM show and play that clip on the way in.
I think it's because Evans was trying. Brad Evans was picking right after me. He's like, "Oh, I can't believe you took my guy." Well, I'll trade him to you. Because Brad, that's a bad reserve pick next year.
I see. He's just Well, when Evans likes it, that always makes you think that it's a bad.
That was the other reason. Yeah, absolutely. But for this year, for the second half of this year, I mean, there's going to be a slump, right? I want to see how he reacts to that first slump. You know,
I mean,
when the word gets out, he has weaknesses. You know, take him down. And I think it'll probably happen. I mean, he had a bad series against San Diego. I don't know. Maybe I'd put him around. I'm thinking around 50 or so.
50? So,
Yeah, it's pretty tame.
Ryan Braun or Puig? Who would you take?
That's a really good question. I wish you didn't ask that. Puig.
Yeah, I would take Puig too. How about Puig or Josh Hamilton?
Puig still. I mean, Hamilton, there's something wrong with him.
What about Puig or Matt Kemp?
Closer. Probably Kemp.
I mean, look, I know it's crazy, but Puig, it's not just okay, so we've talked about this before, but it's not just the sample, the size of the sample. It's also the magnitude of the sample. You know, It's like, yeah, it's only been 3-4 weeks, but the magnitude is ridiculous. I mean, it's like off the charts good. And to me, the guy reminds me of is Vlad Guerrero. He just swings at everything, but there's no pitch he can't hit, and with enough power and enough strength to get it out of the park.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And you know, it's fortunate because it's the Dodgers really lucked out because both Kemp and Crawford were on the DL at the same time. And in the case of Crawford, he's taking longer to come back. It's forcing him to play Puig every single day and let him just establish his bona fides to the point where Don Mattingly can't possibly take him out. Especially now that the Dodgers have started winning. You know, there's really no cover. They really have to say, okay, he's our best player right now. We got to keep playing him.
This is a good problem to have, though.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But it's going to be funny to watch Andre Ethier get benched a lot and bellyache about it.
I mean, I don't know what he can say at this point. You know, you're getting paid. They're not taking back the money, and this guy is he's the best player in baseball for the last 4 weeks. He's by far the number one fantasy player since he got called up. There's no way he's not. There's no way he's not the number one fantasy player. I can't even think of somebody else who could be ahead of him.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I think you're absolutely right. Hey, quickly, let's talk a little football before we sign off. We had Scott Pianowski on the air today. You made a side bet with him. Tom Brady versus Matt Ryan for this year's leagues using Yahoo Friends and Family scoring system. Elaborate real quick.
Yeah, I have Ryan at 7 and Brady at 6, so I don't feel like strongly that Brady's going to beat Ryan. I just feel strongly that people are too worried about Hernandez going to prison as some huge downgrade of Brady. I mean, the Gronkowski injury is much more significant. Gronkowski was, one of the elite receivers in the league the last couple of years, but he's expected to miss maybe a few games. Maybe he's on the regular season PUP list and misses 6, but he missed 5 last year. Hernandez missed significant time last year and was terrible when he played because he was playing on a gimpy ankle, and he probably also had perhaps that double murder that they're investigating on his mind. Who knows what he was up to last year. And then, Wes Welker was good, but they've got Amendola, and I think that, the Welker-Brady combo was, 80% Brady, 20% Welker. Not that Welker's not good, but that Amendola can fill those shoes, most of the way. And then you have Brandon Lloyd, who was kind of a disappointment. And you're going to have a couple of rookies like Aaron Dobson and Josh Boyce. And then you brought in, Donald Jones of the Bills, who could be okay. And I think it's the system and it's Brady, the work ethic, and just the fact that he does not settle for mediocrity. There's not going to be those guys are going to know the plays, they're going to know the routes, and they're going to do what they're supposed to do, and they're going to practice hard, and they're going to get the thing right. It's just that kind of, it's not the Oakland Raiders here. They're going to get it right. And I think the offense is still going to go. And, P&I was talking about how Brady wasn't a big fantasy quarterback, 8 years ago or whatever before Boss came, but they had a good defense. They were a running team. He was still a good quarterback. He just wasn't a big fantasy quarterback because he didn't need to be. And plus the rules were different. The NFL is way more higher scoring. It's way more pass-oriented than it was even in 2003, 2004. So I don't think they're going to stop throwing. I don't see why the Patriots aren't going to have the ball in the hands of their best player most of the time. And he's going to figure out who to get the ball to.
I agree with you on that. And I think the Welker-Amendola comparison is pretty apt. What happened to Moss ever since he left Brady, too? He's done nothing since.
Right.
And it's not like Moss – I'm not going to challenge what he's done in the course of his career, but, over his last 4 years, what has he done? Nothing. So Brady has made Moss just as much as Moss has made Brady, if not more, way more.
Right. I mean, Moss at the tail end of his prime had the 23-touchdown year and then another 13 – then he was hurt. Then Brady was hurt, and I think he had 11 touchdowns with Castle, another 13 with Brady the year after that, and that was the end. Obviously Moss really helped Brady even at that stage, and Welker helped Brady, and those guys are good players. But I just think, Aaron Hernandez, I mean, yeah, maybe he had potential to be a good player, but he was just not a significant NFL player in his career yet. He was a guy who people thought was very talented and could have developed into that kind of option. So they said that about Jermichael Finley a couple years ago, too.
Yeah, it's a valid point, too. All right, he's Chris Liss. I'm Jeff Erickson. Thanks for watching RotoWire TV.